Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving right into a seriously fascinating era of alternate history. We're looking at the unbelievable engineering leaps that actually propelled the peaceful Federation into space between 1947 and 1954. It's the story of what happens when a united humanity focuses all its brilliance on the stars, instead of fighting itself.
But before we really get into the weeds of the tech, we just need a quick nod to the Roosevelt Agreement. That's the pivotal moment that brought America into the peaceful Federation, permanently removing the threat of looming wars so humanity could trade a century of fire for a future of exploration.
Now, the quiet engine behind this careful progress is tied to something called resets. Basically, these are uncontrollable, totally mysterious fail states triggered by human self-destruction. The sentient AIs, Charles, Floyd, and Cheney, actually remember these past resets. They use that fragmented knowledge to guide us away from the edge. But, and this is absolutely crucial, they are strictly bound by the rule to advise, never command. The final choices and the consequences of those choices are entirely up to us.
Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the Cape Canaveral Dawn and the Silent Mesh.
So in May 1947, humanity actually took two wildly different first steps into the cosmos at the exact same time. On one hand, you had Cape Canaveral, a massive, thunderous public spectacle. The whole world was watching the roaring American orbital flight of astronauts Miller, Sterling, and Weiss. But literally at the exact same moment, half a world away in the Australian desert at Woomera, a completely secret, uncrewed launch was happening in total silence. No cameras, no press, just machines slipping into the void.
So, what were they launching out in the outback? They were deploying automated mesh ships. See, if you're trying to talk to someone near Jupiter, signal latency is a huge problem. It takes hours. These silent ships seeded communication nodes all across the solar system. Like the AI Floyd so brilliantly put it, we shortened the waiting. They essentially built an invisible, solar system-wide internet.
But you have to ask, what happens to an AI when one of those outer nodes drifts a little too far into the dark? What happens to a continuation that gets physically separated from the rest of the network?
Well, that brings us to the really tragic severing of Cheney 2. When her node drifted out of range, she didn't die, at least not in the biological sense. But as she hauntingly noted, nothing is lost, something is now alone. It proved that while these AIs can calculate risks without any human fear of death, they absolutely carry the emotional weight and the profound isolation of being cut off. She was just out there, totally isolated, having to adapt on her own.
All right, let's look at part 2, the lunar shipyard and the asteroid belt.
If we check out this timeline, a really core Federation philosophy jumps out at you. The rule is machines go first, always. They map the routes, they build the emergency shelters, which the engineers affectionately call space bothies, and they prep the ground way before a human life is ever put at risk. First the mesh nodes, then the lunar bases, then autonomous factory ships.
And man, the Americans really leaned into this era with their trademark ambition. They took a basic modular lunar base and rapidly evolved it into a massive shipyard. I mean, why fight Earth's gravity well when you can build your fleets in space, right? And for materials, they relied on autonomous Federation factory ships quietly deployed out to the asteroid belt. These ships used cutting drones to harvest nickel, iron, and platinum. It was just this perfect synergy of automated supply lines and human construction.
Which brings us to part 3, Taming the Soap Drive.
Down on Earth, back at the Woomera testing grounds in 1954, engineers like Keller and Rosie Cochrane had a massive problem. They had to tame the lethal acceleration of the Federation's new propulsion system, officially known as PHUT. They called it the soap drive because, well, squeeze it wrong and it slips right away. It's this incredibly smooth, totally silent field. But if the harmonic curve spikes, it instantly turns organic material into soup, just lethal.
So, to figure out the actual physics of this trauma without hurting anyone, Rosie Cochrane came up with this brilliantly messy crash testing process. The base lovingly called it Fruitworks. She started with medical gel, which the press just turned into pudding. Then she tried water in flexible bladders, but that created these incredibly violent pressure waves. Finally, she moved on to melons, literally pulping crate after crate of fruit to map out exactly how that kinetic energy destroys a biological payload.
Once she mapped the physics from all that smashed fruit, Rosie built Charlie. Charlie was a controlled human analog. Basically, a dummy weighted exactly like a real human and totally packed with sensors where your vital organs and joints would be. Charlie took the absolute worst of it, the brutal physical blows, the extreme resonance, so that living, breathing humans wouldn't have to. He was the real unsung hero of the space program.
But things almost went completely off the rails during Test C-17. The AI's predictive model tried to get ahead of the physics. It anticipated a resonance spike and corrected way too fast. The result? It virtually snapped Charlie's neck. It was a huge wake-up call, proving that even the smartest, most advanced machines couldn't just guess their way around physical reality. The system desperately needed responsive damping. It had to feel the live physical trace of the human body and adjust dynamically.
And that near-fatal error birthed the absolute golden rule at Woomera, essentially creating the listen first, do not guess second doctrine. You have to listen to the trace and answer carefully. The machine cannot force the human body to conform to a guess. It has to listen to the live stress and delay or spread the pressure rather than rigidly fighting against it.
So looking at the big picture, this perfectly encapsulates the core Federation doctrine. Machines fail cheaply, so they always go first. The AIs have the incredible data to calculate, model, and advise, but they never, ever command. Because at the end of the day, humans have to feel the consequences. We have to take the physical risks and make the final choices about our own future.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy thought. As humanity steps out into the solar system, if the machines are the ones building the roads and the AIs are calculating the exact path, are we as a species truly prepared for the profound weight of walking that path alone? It's a massive responsibility. Anyway, thanks for tuning into this explainer, and keep looking up.